Hey, welcome back, guys. This is Chris with Retro Crypt. Seeing as it's New Year's Eve, I wanted to do a New Year's themed film. So I'm gonna do Ghostbusters 2. So I just wanted to set this up so I could play it. Hopefully, I don't get copyrighted for this. I think I'm allowed to show the trailer. So let me just show the trailer real quick. I'm assuming you're allowed to show a trailer.
At the stroke of midnight, at the stroke of midnight,
Okay.
on New Year's Eve of the last decade of the 20th century,
Very ominous.
America's largest city is about to pay for the nastiness of its inhabitants.
Slime Square.
When that day comes, when the slime starts to rise,
The Titanic just arrived.
It's a slimy
when
city.
ghosts start arriving by the boatload,
We gotta find the guys.
there's only
So we got
one
most of the
thing to
cast
do.
returning.
Sometimes weird things happen. Someone has to deal with it. And who are you gonna call?
Fourth wall broken already.
Suck in the guts, guys. We're the Ghostbusters.
The superstars of the supernatural are back to nuke the spooks.
Two in the box. Ready to go. We be fast and
Baby slow.
Make some time.
Don't put any of those old cheap moves on me.
no.
It's different.
I have all new cheap moves.
Raise your spirits.
If we don't do something by midnight, you will be remembered in history as the man who let New York get sucked down into the 10th level of hell.
And kick some slime.
Looks like a giant jello mold.
I hate Jello.
Oh, come on, there's always room for jello. Happy New Year!
Hose 'em.
Ghostbusters 2.
You're short, your belly button sticks out too far, and you're a terrible burden on your poor mother.
Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Sigourney Weaver, Harold Ramis, Rick Moranis, and Ernie Hudson in an Ivan Reitman film. Ghostbusters 2.
We're the best! We're the beautiful! We're the only Ghostbusters! We're back! Who you gonna call?
So the one and only Ghostbusters back. So apparently, from what I read, the reception for Ghostbusters 2 was a generally poor one. It made a lot of money, but nowhere near as much. It made 215 million, as opposed to Ghostbusters, the first Ghostbusters, 285 million. So there's quite a difference there. But like I said, most of the cast was returned. So we got Ivan Reitman produced, directed, as well as produced and written by Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd. I should have set up a intercut a picture there, just so you don't see a huge blank screen. Let me just do that real quick. So much for being. I prepared. I did prepare, but that is the only part that I forgot to do. Is that right? It's guerrilla style, you know. Gotta love that. So we got a Ghostbusters image. Ghostbusters 2. Spell it right? Yep. Okay. And we're image. Still new to this. Working on it. We're getting there. Yeah, so I really see. So I read some reviews. The Ebert review was, wouldn't really say it was scathing, but it wasn't exactly positive either. All right, I think we're ready to start. So again, I did this for Christmas. I did a Christmas quote unquote movie. I mean, everybody says Die Hard is a Christmas movie, so if Die Hard is a Christmas movie, then Batman Returns is a Christmas movie. And if that's the rules that we're playing by, then hypothetically Ghostbusters 2 is a New Year's Eve themed movie because it takes place on New Year's Eve. And that's the reason why I guess Vigo, the protagonist, the antagonist, is, well, we'll get into that. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. All right, so box office, $215 million against the $25 million budget, which is pretty good. You know, they recouped and then some. So I don't really give a shit about Rotten Tomatoes. It's like any. It's like a guideline you could go with. Like, all right, let's see what Rotten Tomatoes says. Let's see what Siskel and Ebert said, etc., etc. Like, you're gonna like the movie regardless if they said it sucked or not. But just based on that, 55%. Rotten Tomatoes gave this movie a 55%. Let's see what Rotten Tomatoes gave Ghostbusters 1. Again, nobody cares, but I'm just curious. Ghostbusters 1, Rotten Tomatoes. So Rotten Tomatoes gave Ghostbusters 1 95%. So considerable difference. I mean, Ghostbusters 1 is superior. There's no question. Ghostbusters 2 is still a very good movie. So as I was saying, most of the original cast returned. They added Peter McNichol, who's Janosch Vigo, played by Wilhelm von Hamburg. So he was one of the terrorists in Die Hard. Peter McNichol, he's been in a lot of movies. House Guest with Sinbad, which, you know, it's a silly 90s movie. I still think it's funny. Henry and William, I'm going to butcher this name and I apologize ahead of time. It's Deutschendorf, I believe it's pronounced. So that's the twin brothers that played the Oscar role. Unfortunately, Henry, he was mentally ill and he took his own life by hanging. Apparently he was schizophrenic and heard up to 25 voices in his head. So I read somewhere that that had happened, I think it was in 2017, so, you know, rest in peace. Kurt Fuller, who is the mayor's aide, and he pretty much he's a great actor. He's always typecast as like the slimy, like, you know, TV exec, like in No Holds Barred, the Hulk Hogan movie, which I love still to this day. It's so bad it's good. So he plays like the slimy TV executive that ropes in Hulk Hogan. Well, his name is Rip in the movie, but Hulk Hogan's character Rip, into working for his network because he's the most popular wrestler on the planet. So Harris Yulin, who plays the judge, I believe he was also in Scarface, if I'm not mistaken. So the runtime of this movie is 108 minutes. It was a tad on the long side. I watched it earlier today in prep for this. I haven't watched it in a couple of years, but I've seen it a million times. It's one of those movies where, you know, if you had HBO growing up, or just any movie channel really, like even on Channel 11, it would be on. It's like The Goonies, it's always on. So Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd came up with the idea for the script of negative emotions, empowering evil spirits, and enabling them to come into the real world and overrun the city and the world. So eventually, I guess the plot kind of morphed into this the green slime, or the pink slime, um, forms as you saw in the trailer. It forms as a result of the negative energy, and then when Vigo, the Carpathian, you know the antagonist of the movie, it's kind of convoluted, but like the slime is like his vehicle to being reborn into the real world. So I never noticed that growing up, and I realized there's kind of like a weird, like, what's going on exactly? Like, what's the correlation between the slime and Vigo? Like, it seems like almost two different ideas going on at once. Like, the negative energy fuels the pink slime, and then if people get pink slime on them, then they start going crazy, and it enables the spirits to come back. And I guess, you know, Vigo doesn't really ever mention that, but so filming took place between November '88 and March of '89 in New York and LA. Large portions of the film were scrapped, and this is interesting, I didn't know this. Large portions of the film were scrapped due to poor test screenings, and reshoots were done up until a couple months before the release of the movie. And this is important because Bill Murray, who didn't want to return, said that he was reluctant to return until he heard until Ivan Reitman got all the cast into a room together, and he started to explain the script that that they had come up with. So by the time they started filming a little bit, I guess Bill Murray was like, "What is this? This isn't really what I signed on to be filming." And by that point, it was too late because they had already started filming. So they were kind of like, "We roped you in." So that was interesting. I knew he wasn't really too keen on returning in the first place, but I didn't really know the reasoning or like any of the backstory about that. So the critical response was initially pretty tepid, but McNichols and Rick Moranis's, who neither of them are main characters, but their performances were praised. So same thing in like Batman Returns. The movie was generally seen as, it generally saw negative reviews, but Michelle Pfeiffer and Danny DeVito's roles were praised. So essentially, this is a movie it's like a license to print money. Like the first movie is a smash hit. There's too many ways to make a franchise out of it. So it was expected to crush it at the box office, but it made comparatively less. So it made $67 million less than the first movie. So 215 for Ghostbusters 2 and 282 for Ghostbusters 1, which is a difference of 67 million. But at the same time, 215 million in 1989 money is $516.7 million, which is pretty good. It's the financial, I guess, failings. Again, it doesn't seem like a failure, but I guess they were expecting it to at least outperform the first movie. But it became a pop culture phenomenon. Toys, merch, etc., etc. So, plot summary goes as follows. So 5 years after defeating Gozer, the Ghostbusters are pretty much out of business. They're seen as a bunch of clowns. Kids clown on them. They wrecked half the city. Everybody's saying that they're frauds, even though they saved the world, essentially. Which is kind of an interesting plot device, seeing as they pretty much just saved the entire world. And, you would figure going into the second movie they'd be these triumphant heroes, but no, they're kind of like washed up in the beginning. So starting up the movie, music cues, and the composition sound, like I found the listening to the musical composition of the movie, it sounded a lot more like family friendly. I don't know if you know what I mean, but just the music itself sounded like less like ominous and kind of eerie, more of a like a it had like a very 90s movie feel to it. More silly, goofy, family friendly. There's a lot of on the nose New York City jokes, like a guy, complaining about getting towed, and a guy runs into a woman on crutches, and he just keeps running. So we're setting it up for like zany, like less serious. You're not gonna see Dan Aykroyd getting a blowjob from a ghost in this movie, that's for sure. So it seems like it's not quite as smart as the original. It's catering to families, etc., etc. So we get to a scene where Sigourney Weaver's character Dana, her baby carriage goes, the wheel goes into the slime, which is coming up from the concrete, a crack in the concrete, and this kind of sets up the movie. So it's the slime touches stuff, and it's able to, exert energy. It causes the baby carriage to go out into the middle of the road, which is important. We'll talk about that. So the carriage stops, the main theme starts up, and again, it's like a red herring. You're expecting the Ghostbusters to come in their car triumphantly, and they're about to solve the case, but no, they're going to basically get made fun of at a crappy kid's birthday party. So the mom from the Goonies plays the mom in this scene. Ivan Reitman, his son, is the full of crap kid, the kid that says, "Well, my dad says you guys are full of crap." So that's not really important, but a little fun fact. All right, so they break the fourth wall in this scene where they play their own theme. So I guess they got the Ghostbusters theme in the movie, right? So Dan Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson's characters, they're pretty much setting up the audience for how they're on the outs with the city. We save them. The yuppie larva, as Ray says. You'd think they would be a little bit more thankful and forgiving, but they pretty much are more or less broke. Dana goes to see Egon at his job, so he's still doing scientific stuff. So he's doing a study in which he's doing, like, people think they're coming in for marriage counseling, but it's really like a surreptitious way of studying people, studying their behavioral habits. So it's a marriage counseling, but they're like turning up the heat in the room, so it's increasing their animosity towards each other. So that kind of sets up the kind of, I guess, the kind of like the plot of the movie. It's like the animosity between each other, and it's maybe we should be a little bit nicer to each other. So Dana and Egon recap what happened with she and Peter. They broke up, yada yada yada, didn't part on good terms. We cut this to Peter Venkman. He has a show, World of Psychic. There's a psychic on the show played by Kevin Dunn, he's been in a million different movies. One that comes to mind immediately, and I didn't really like the Transformers movies all that much. The first one was okay, but he was the dad in the Transformers movie. He says the world will end on New Year's Eve. Let's hope not, because we're getting there. It's 8:30 right now. So the other psychic on the show, a little shout out to Paramus, New Jersey. She says that an alien told her that an alien in the Paramus Hautian told her that the world will end on February 14th. So this character was played by Chloe Webb, she played Nancy in Sid and Nancy. So there's a lot of like recognizable faces in this movie. Um, so after the show, Peter runs into the mayor. Kurt Fuller's character intercepts him. Banter ensues. Peter says, "I'm a voter. Aren't you supposed to kiss my butt or something?" So Bill Murray is obviously the best character in the movie. His dry, sarcastic humor really drives these things. So we cut over to the museum. This sets up our antagonist, Vigo. Dana has a new job. She's not with the orchestra anymore. She's basically has a job there cleaning paintings. This guy, Janosch, is her boss. She's kind of obsessed with him. He's kind of like the Louis Tully of this movie, played by Rick Moranis. He's going to return. He's not obsessed with Dana anymore. I guess they they boned in the first movie because they were. I mean, technically they didn't. They were possessed by Zool and Vince Clortho, respectively. So Peter McNichol plays Janosch. He's hilarious in this movie. And then we see Vigo do kind of like a Freddy Krueger face pop thing out of the painting, which is a cool effect. Ray has his own shop. This is how he's making money, called Ray's Occult Books. It's kind of like the shop in Gremlins. It's got a bunch of little oddities and stuff, which I thought was cool. Peter starts to pry into what him and Egon are working on, and he's able to find out. And we cut back to Dana's apartment. They go to her apartment to figure out what's going on with this. Why did her baby carriage just fly into oncoming traffic? And one thing I noticed is how did she afford this huge apartment in New York City and a nanny just by cleaning some paintings? I mean, God bless. I guess the job pays pretty well because I can't imagine that being cheap. So they're talking about Dana's divorce. This scene is kind of weird because people don't break up. Alright, so they were dating, they broke up, she got married and had a kid with somebody else, broke up with that guy, and now they're talking about it pretty casually. I don't know. It just, watching critically, I was just like, it's kind of weird, but whatever. I guess that's what mature adults do, they don't, just pretend each other didn't exist when they break up. So Peter's trying to bond a little bit with Oscar. So we go outside. Dana shows the Ghostbusters where the carriage stopped in the middle of the road, and they're using their I forget what it's called, the PKE meters, I think. And they find out that there's a lot of paranormal activity going on here. So next scene they cut into the concrete with jackhammers and stuff. They pretend to be working with the city. We cut over to the museum. We get Janosch cleaning Vigo's painting, and Vigo pretty much tells him to bring me a child, and this is how they kind of set up. Vigo possesses Janosch, who is going to infiltrate Dana to get to the baby, so that Vigo essentially could possess the baby and be reborn. He has to do it on this where the New Year's Eve element comes in. He basically has to do this at the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve, and that will make him reborn. I guess because he was a powerful magician in his time. So they find that the river's slime is flowing through the pneumatic transit system of 1870. Ray is lowered down into the abandoned subway system. And the police come up with some Con Ed guys, and they say, who are you working for? Because it's not us. While they're distracted, Ray is attacked by the slime. Excuse me. As he's trying to get up, he knocks some wires out and it prompts a blackout in the city. Janos goes up to Dana's apartment, says, "How's it going? Can I do anything?" She says no. He turns around. His eyes turn into flashlights. It's creepy as fuck. He's like the new Rick Moranis. In the first movie, he gets possessed. In the first movie, Rick Moranis gets possessed by the dog, I think, and he's the I think he's the keymaster. That's how they essentially get Gozer to come back. So jumping ahead a little bit, we go to the court scene. So basically, the Ghostbusters are facing some time. They're about to go to Rikers, but then the judge, famous scene, who, again, we know that the slime that they brought up for as a sample, it reacts to negative energy. It reacts to positive energy as well, but mostly for the scene, it's like, okay, the judge is yelling at the Ghostbusters, and it starts bubbling up to the point where it just blows up, and due to the anger and the animosity in the courtroom, the Scolari brothers, who the judge put to death prior to this, explode out of there, and it looks really cool. Like, the effects stand the test of time. So apparently, I had to look this up. The death penalty was abolished in New York in 2004. So it just, I don't know. New York doesn't seem like a death penalty state, so I was curious about that, and I looked it up. So 2004. So fix that. So this is a pretty cool scene where the judge dismisses their case, and he says, "Do something." It's very much like the first movie, in which the Ghostbusters go to the restaurant and Slimer is possessing the restaurant, and they give the maitre d' their price, and he's like, "No, that's ridiculous. I won't pay it." And then he's just like, "All right, fine, do something about it." So they power up their packs. There's no time for a test. It's cool. The fuel cells last for about, I think, like 5,000 years or something like that. So this is the cool scene I was talking about. The chairs start flying one by one until they get up to the Ghostbusters, and then they jump out again, and the fat one looks kind of like Slimer. It's a really cool effect. There's like a really skinny, gangling looking one and a fat one. They're flying around. This was one thing I noticed about this movie. There was like a lot of one-liners shoehorned in there. When they're powering up their packs, they do the do, re, egon, and then they do the two in the box, ready to go. We be fast, they be slow. It's like there's a lot of scenes that they created for probably for the trailer, and it is a very quotable movie, but looking at it critically, it's just kind of like it just, I don't know. It was made for kids, not for kids, but like for families. So they needed a lot of like quotable lines, and when the shit hits a fan, who are you gonna call? Breaking the fourth wall again, breaking the fourth wall again. So Annie Potts is back. She's like, yeah, yeah. She's answering the phones again. We're back. She's very hot, for like her look is very different in this movie. She's got like this, short, bangs and uh, like hipster glasses, red hair. She was a lot hotter in the first movie, but she is hot in the second one as well. She's got the leopard print going. I like that. So I thought it was weird that 5 years went by and there was like no paranormal activity at all. Now it's just exploding. But you know, Slimer's back. Slimer, the character, so not slime from that's under the ground. So we get to the scene where they're testing the slime out in the at the Ghostbusters spot. So I always thought this scene was hilarious. Ray's going off. He's like, you weak, pathetic slob," saying stuff like that, and then Egon, his insult to me is funnier because he's like, "You have a weak chemical bond." He's very like dry and you know not as cut as Ray. So they pour slime into the toaster. There's a famous scene. The toaster dances around. They play Jackie Wilson. So I looked up how they did that. It was a hand prop, battery powered hand prop, and it just kind of like bounces back and forth. It was pretty cool. Um, Peter visits Dana in the museum again. They had some very 90s sitcom music which was kind of cringy. I'm not gonna lie. Peter sees Vigo for the first time. Dana's saying it. The painting is making her uncomfortable since it came up from storage. She feels like it's watching her. Um, so we get to the scene where Dana's back at home. She's about to give Oscar a bath and slime. She doesn't notice that the slime is coming out of the faucet, and it turns into like some sort of monster. It tries to eat her. Again, pretty cool effect. It stands the test of time, I thought. She goes to Peter's. We jump to Ray and Egon working on the slime guns, and they're making the connection to to Vigo and the slime. So all the Ghostbusters go to the museum to check out the Vigo painting. They talk about how he's a madman and he killed a bunch of people. He had a quote. It was "Death is but a door, time is but a window. I will be back." So I guess he kind of had the foresight there. Um, yeah, Peter's taking a lot of pictures, clowning on him, making fun of him. He can't lose control around all those people. Vigo, that is. Um, so in this scene, Ray kind of, we foreshadow a scene that comes later towards the end. Ray and Vigo make eye contact, or looks at the painting of Vigo's eyes, and he gets kind of like almost like partially possessed. It kind of goes like a lot of plot devices get recycled from the first movie. So it was like Ray in the first movie. It's like Gozer says, whatever you think of is gonna destroy you, and then they all clear their minds. And then Ray thinks about Mr. Stay Puft, and then we get a huge Mr. Stay Puft that comes. It's like that in the second movie where it's like Ray kind of is he's like, I wouldn't say the weak-minded one, but he kind of has some sort of weird connection with the bad guy. Again, I'll get to more reused things here, but I guess Dana is still interested in Peter. She's coming out of the bathroom in a towel and stuff, so I guess she needs a stepdad for Oscar. So Peter wants to set up a date. We jump over to the Ghostbusters spot they're analyzing the pictures of Ego that they took, and they're seeing like a lot of creepy stuff. It looks like a dead decomposing head, and it looks really cool. Ray says there's definitely a living presence here. It's very demonic looking. As they're doing this, the door locks itself behind them, and then the pictures are set ablaze, trapping them. So Winston comes in, bashes the door in, and with the fire extinguisher, and saves the day. So then they track down Peter and Dana, say we got to go down into the tunnels, etc. Peter stays behind because he's on a date, obviously. He's trying to get some cheeks. So they go down to the subway, the abandoned subway. They're trying to find the tunnel again. With the river of slime, they do this echoing thing. Winston says, "Hey," and then a demon voice says his name, but like Winston, and then they get really creeped out. Then they like hallucinate some heads on a stick, which is very not family friendly. These things looked very gory. There was like, like hanging gore and like red blood, and the effects were amazing. Like there were some amazing practical effects here, very realistic looking. So this and then they hear a train coming, so they're like, it's been abandoned for years and years. So it couldn't be a train, but Winston's like, it sounds pretty close. And then a ghost train comes. It's a train that was apparently derailed and killed a bunch of people. And there's another scene where like they're doing that humor where they say a line and then they say a line and then they kind of pause. It's like, hey, did you get the number? Sorry, I missed it. It was kind of like almost like a Looney Tunes moment. I thought it was funny, but then they're looking for Ray. The jump scare. They find he says he found it. They're taking samples. So they throw like a hook in there to get a sample of the slime. Then they all get dragged in because it got caught on something. So at this point, they realize that the slime is making them fight each other. Winston falls in, and he makes this like hilarious whimper. He's like, "Ah." Like they gave Ernie Hudson a lot more lines in this movie, but like they made him look like a clown. Like in the first movie, he was like really tough and to the point. In this movie, he got a lot more lines, but he was just kind of like, almost like comic relief. So at dinner, Peter and Dana are making up. They keep, and this is again, they're recycling ideas in lieu of character development. But I guess if they're gonna make a sequel, then they were gonna keep those two characters in the movie, that I guess they had to make up. So Janine and Lewis who are supposed to be babysitting, but they start making out and stuff. Again, it's a recycled thing from the first movie. We have Lewis and like the nerdy. Janine was kind of like interested in Egon in the first movie. So now her new love interest is Lewis. It's like the two nerdy people again. So again, it's another recycled plot device. So they're so fast. So there's another funny thing. So Ray and Winston and Egon, they go from being in the subway in the River of Slime. They get to the restaurant in like mere minutes. The city's kind of huge. Like they're just getting around. Like assuming they had to take a cab. I don't know if they took the Ghostbusters. I forgot the name of it. Like the car. But like again, parking is horrible in the city. Like where did they park and how are they able to get there so fast? So They go to the mayor to state their case. The mayor's assistant has them committed to the mental institution after the mayor is gone. So the mayor says it's being miserable and treating people like dirt is every New Yorker's God-given right, which is very, very true. New Yorkers are very miserable people. The doctor in the mental institution is played by Brian Doyle Murray, Bill Murray's brother, and he gets a lot of movie roles because his brother is Bill Murray in Bill Murray movies. See Scrooge, for an example, which is a Christmas movie that, I should have done more Christmas movies other than just Batman Returns. I could have done Scrooged, which is technically my favorite Christmas movie. But anyway, Brian Doyle Murray's in the movie. This is around. This is what like kind of precipitates Vigo's plan, because the Ghostbusters are in a mental institution. Vigo could kind of just like run rampant right now. So we get to the scene where Oscar is on a balcony, and Janosch comes out of the sky looking like an old lady slash guy from like a newspaper guy from the 1920s, and they do this cool like arm effect where he comes and grabs him and puts him in a carriage, and they just fly off to the museum. So baby's kidnapped. This is, we're on the final swing. So the guys are locked in the mental institution still. But how does anybody think that they're actually crazy, though? I know their story sounds crazy, like the slime makes people, do what they do, and like the doctor's listening to them talk, like, oh, smoking a cigarette, like, okay. But the people in the first movie saw that a huge marshmallow man. They saw the Ghostbusters, take care of a bunch of, capture a bunch of ghosts. They saw them capturing ghosts in the last hour of this movie. So I don't know how anybody could think they were crazy at this point, but, suspension of disbelief. So I guess at this point, again, the plot, the slime is starting to overflow. Things are precipitating. Dana runs to the museum because she knows that's where Oscar's gonna be. The slime covers the museum like the blob, trapping Dana inside. I'm pretty sure that the slime in this one next scene is recycled footage from the Blob movie. It's like the pink slime moving through concrete, and I'm almost positive that it's the same exact footage from the Blob movie. I believe came out a couple of years before that. So again, recycled themes from the first movie. We're leading up to the final battle, so we're showing ghosts taking over the city. Shit's getting worse and worse. So again, we saw that in the first movie. There's the code scene, the famous code scene, the chinchillas that come alive and jump off the lady and goes running down the street, which was hilarious and cool. Very cool effect. We got the Titanic coming in and docking. And again, a very cool scene. We see all the 1920s people walking on the dock. We get a little Cheech Marin cameo. We get a Ben Stein cameo. So the mayor's pissed off. He obviously doesn't want the city to he doesn't want to be responsible as the mayor that lets New York City get sucked into the 10th level of hell, his words. He says there's no choice. We got to call the Ghostbusters. He finds out that Kurt Fuller's character, he's kind of, again, another recycled thing. Kurt Fuller's character is like the Walter Peck character from the first movie, the EPA guy who thinks that the Ghostbusters are releasing a nerve agent around the city, causes people to hallucinate and think that they're seeing ghosts. So he's like the turd in the punch bowl, essentially. It's at this point where Kurt Fuller's character tells the mayor that I had them committed, they're unavailable. he fires Kurt Fuller. Obviously, he says, "Get the Ghostbusters out." Okay, that was pretty easy. Um, so thousands of people converge at the museum. Again, recycled. They converged on Dana's building in the first movie. Um, Again, another recycled thing. The Ghostbusters try their packs and nothing on the slime. Actually, no, that part's not recycled. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. My bad. All right, so they're like, we need another way in. Apparently, this museum has a glass roof. They didn't really mention that. I didn't know if they knew that, but their plan is basically to go and use the slime in the Statue of Liberty. Again, we're supposed to be getting all of this done before the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve. So how are we getting from this building to the Statue of Liberty, putting all the slime and shit inside of the inside the Statue of Liberty, setting up all the speaker equipment to play Jackie Wilson, setting up the Nintendo Advantage controller to control the Statue of Liberty, walk the Statue of Liberty from where it's at to the museum, all before midnight. I know suspension of disbelief, but watching this with a critical eye, I was like, man, they take a lot of liberties. Like, they would have had to start this whole thing like when it was still daytime. So again, they walked the Statue of Liberty, and to think that they were pissed off at the Ghostbusters in the first movie for fucking up the city, like, they literally took the Statue of Liberty and destroyed it by walking it all the way inland. Like, it's a good thing they didn't make a third movie, because they would have been the movie would have started out with them in prison, because they really fucked the city up this time. I understand things happen, but you know. They break through the ceiling. They zip line down. Again, the logistics of this, like, they know how to zip line down from a couple hundred feet or whatever it is. Vigo appears outside the painting for the first time. Very cool effect. And again, this is another recycled thing from the first movie. They try and use their. This was what I was getting at before, where I kind of jumped ahead of myself. So they use the proton packs on Vigo, and he just absorbs it and knocks them back and paralyzes them where they can't move. That happened in the first movie. So he's getting ready to possess Oscar, and then he starts like kind of tweaking out a little bit. All the singing and the goodwill of the crowd weakens Vigo to the point where they're able to break free. The Ghostbusters are able to break free, and then they start hosing him down with the slime to get him back into the painting. So in a last-ditch effort, Vigo tries to possess Ray, and then they hose down Ray with the positively charged slime, and all is well. At the end, they show the Vigo painting has transformed into kind of like a Renaissance picture of the Ghostbusters with Oscar. So a cool little touch there. It was a cute ending. My final analysis of this movie is it's still very watchable, even though looking at it, had me seeing some flaws. It's still a classic, in my opinion. It's like an amazing, I wouldn't say amazing, but it's a great like Saturday afternoon kind of cartoon, Saturday afternoon movie that you watch when if you have like it's like the Goonies. It's like if you're flipping through the channels and you see it on a lazy day, you're like, all right, I'm just gonna lay on the couch and watch Ghostbusters too. Again, there's a lot of flaws. The flaws that I see, which were the ones that, let me pull up, I have this Roger Ebert preview, which again, a critic is a critic is a critic, but the review that he gave was very true, in my opinion. He said, Ghostbusters 2. Who are you going to call? Script doctors, that's who. Aside from a few spasms of ectoplasmic invention, in parentheses, the Titanic docks in New York Harbor about 65 years too late, this sequel to the hilarious 1984 hit Smells of Found Money. Very true. That is, nobody really wanted to do it, but nobody could say no to an assumed box office bonanza. This time, the not-so-ready for slime time players, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Ernie Hudson, find a veritable river of pink goo flowing under Manhattan after Sigourney Weaver asks for their help. Some odd things are happening to her baby. It turns out that the collective bad vibes of New York of the Big Apple have made the city a magnet for restless spirits hell-bent on wreaking havoc on the human race. Peter McNichol is very funny as an art restorer with an unfathomable accent, and Murray still gets away with his dry, Groucho revisited wisecracks. But the first movie was funnier, faster, and, well, fresher. This one's more like Ghost of Bludgeoned, 2 stars. Rare. So, it's true. They took the template of the first movie and just built a new movie around it, and there was just so many recycled scenes. Like, the court scene is like the restaurant scene, and the Statue of Liberty. They needed like a huge, crazy. It was like Mr. Stay Puft in the first movie. So it's like Mr. Stay Puft was the huge monster in the first movie. Then they needed the Statue of Liberty in the second movie. It's like very, very similar. I guess they played it safe with the writing. Again, before I said earlier, Bill Murray didn't want to do the sequel. He got roped in with a different story in mind, but once they got to filming, it was something different altogether. Interesting tidbit that I found, again, was... So the original story, let me see if I can find it real quick. I had it up here. Basically, the original plot was centered around a banshee. Original Ghostbusters 2 script. Forgive me, I thought I had this up. What was the original Ghostbusters 2 script? It was supposed to... So this is via ScreenRant.com. So the original Ghostbusters 2 script involved a banshee. That involved an international ghost-busting trip to Scotland. Maybe that's why Bill Murray was pissed, because he thought they were going to he was going to get a free trip to Scotland. I'd be mad too. So the original Ghostbusters 2 script supposedly told a story involving a banshee that the sequel's theatrical version ultimately dropped. In advance of Ghostbusters Afterlife's release this summer, a recent interview with Bill Murray reveals that the original plot for the first sequel was pitched did not pan out the way he thought it would. Perhaps the banshee idea was what got him cited to join in the first place. After the success of the 1984's original film, the 1989 sequel, Ghostbusters 2, pitted the cast against Vigo the Carpathian and the mysterious pink slime rising up from New York City's underground. Before Vigo can resurrect himself by transferring his soul into Dana's infant son, the Ghostbusters use the slime to animate the Statue of Liberty, spread optimism throughout the city, yay, and save the day. Yet, as with most films, the script went through a significant amount of rewrites, so much so that the original idea was lost in translation. So, according to the March 1989 issue of Starlog magazine, Bill Murray pitched The Last of the Ghostbusters as a sequel title. Rumor has it that the first sequel script was also referred to as Ghostbusters The Seed, though this remains unverified. In the November 1989 issue of Cinefix, Dan Aykroyd's sequel idea featured an international ghost-busting excursion to Scotland where Peter Venkman and team would rescue a kidnapped Dana from a fairy ring and civilization underground. In the end, Aykroyd deemed his plan too bizarre. A little self-awareness doesn't hurt. So his plan was too bizarre to be taken seriously, though the idea of the underground stuck. Quote, "It was also probably too inaccessible, though I thought at the time I wrote it that it was the direction we should go in. I wanted to leave New York City behind because I thought we'd done that. My original concept for going underground was different. It involved a pneumatic tube 2,000 miles long that they traveled in for 3 days. It was like a primitive mail chute." Interesting. In a theatrical version of Ghostbusters 2, the Ghostbusters ventured down into an abandoned subway line to investigate the slime, though it would have been a really interesting concept to see them tunnel through Scotland to find Dana. It's got kind of Labyrinth type vibes. Labyrinth legend. In an interview at the Ghostbusters 35th Anniversary Fan Fest, Aykroyd confirmed that Scotland would have been a great setting for the sequel because of its own ghost history. Additionally, the villain of the scrapped version of the Ghostbusters sequel would have likely been a legendary Banshee-like figure. The Ghostbusters franchise has included some great practical effects in the early films, so a Banshee done with limited CGI sounds particularly frightening. Coupled with the other magical beings associated with Scottish lore, it may have been a great commercial success if written well. The original Ghostbusters reveled in the absurd and the fantastical with a giant angry marshmallow man and a potential banshee and underground society in Ghostbusters 2 would have been just as enjoyable. So that sounds pretty cool. I know most, huge movies go through like a lot of revisions and rewrites and reshoots and stuff. Kind of like Alien 3. A lot of people don't like that movie. I personally love it. It got a million. Also starring Sigourney Weaver, ironically. It received a lot of reshoots, rewrites. A lot of the original ideas got lost in translation. So these things happen. I haven't seen Ghostbusters Afterlife. Doing this video, I kind of want to watch it now and see what they did with the series, even though Egon won't be in it. Harold Ramis sadly passed away, and I have zero interest in watching the all-female Ghostbusters. Don't at me. I don't care. I just have zero interest in watching that. It looks horrible. So, that was my New Year's Eve movie critique and review. So, thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you later.